This is History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians Thornton Kennedy and James Ottley.
Welcome to History for Cocktail Parties. I'm your co-host, Thornton Kennedy.
I'm James Ottley.
And today we have a very special guest on History for Cocktail Parties. We consider him the godfather of the show, Will Edmonds.
That's right. Yeah, it was a couple of years ago we got together and I said, hey guys, we kept having these history conversations. They were always so fun. I was like, we should record these. Like we chipped in and we all had like very similar storytelling and whatnot. But yeah, it's been fun. I guess we met because I've been doing Anecdotal Atlanta, ripping off you guys for about 4 years.
What a great thing. Where did you get some of the ideas for your...
Mostly from your books, several other, but your books have been fantastic for what I do. So I have an Instagram and a TikTok account that is relatively popular in Atlanta, where I do Atlanta history, interesting stories in about 1 minute. So very much similar to what you guys do.
And you have a fascinating one that actually ties into our episode.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is one I did last year, but I want to do more about it because I only got to touch on the bit that we're going to talk about at the very end. But how we got there, I think, is a really interesting story.
And let me just say, ladies and gentlemen, we just went through his notes. He has more information on the John Wilkes Booth conspiracy.
He has brought receipts.
So let me catch you up real quickly on where we are. This is episode 4 in our hunt for John Wilkes Booth. Episode 3 does not conclude well for our actor. He dies in Garrett's Barn, April 26th.
Allegedly.
And Garrett's Barn is sort of south of Fredericksburg in Virginia. Bowling Green would be the closest city. And we talked a little bit in the end of episode 3 about what happened to his co-conspirators. One of my more interesting facts was the fact that Mary Surratt was the first woman sentenced to death by the United States government for her role. And I think you'll talk a little bit about the Surratts and their participation in this conspiracy.
Indeed.
So we'll get started. And James, you found the most absurd cocktail for this episode.
Yes, indeed. The Garrett Barn Ember.
The Garrett Barn Ember. And this thing is nasty. It is bourbon, maple syrup, bitters, and charred orange peel.
Yeah, it packs a punch.
Gentlemen, cheers.
Yeah, cheers indeed.
And we are off to the races. Before we get started, I do want to say a quick word about our partners, Play. History is full of lessons learned, and one of the big ones is that those who don't take action get run over by those who do. Play is a full-service ad agency that helps brands find their spark or reignite it. Their team of creative, quote, players, end quote, turns bold ideas into action with smart strategy, design, and digital know-how, helping new businesses launch strong and established ones move forward with fresh energy. Ready to grow your business? Get a free marketing consultation today at goplaydesign.com. That's goplaydesign.com. And thank you, Play, for your partnership.
We appreciate your support.
And now, gentlemen, the conspiracies around John Wilkes Booth. Did he make it out alive? Did he even make it to Garrett's Barn?
I love
Interesting. I don't like the word conspiracy theory because it sort of ties everything together and suggests that everything you've heard is true. This is just the non-official story of how things could have played out, which I personally do believe is what happened.
Right.
But
These
what's
are
interesting,
the facts.
these are the facts as I see
it's
them.
all about the testimony. You're actually looking at the documents of what was
Absolutely.
actually said, and it does not line up in several key.
Exactly.
But would more than one person have to be involved for your account of
Everything's
it?
conspiracy. We conspired to meet
Okay,
here
then
today.
then it's a conspiracy.
Right. So what's interesting about this one, unlike most conspiracy theories, is that we agree on the whodunit. John Wilkes Booth killed Abraham Lincoln.
100%.
100%. Unlike that, which is abnormal for something like this. No one disagrees that. We all agree that he broke his left leg.
Correct.
You say you disagree as to when it happened. You don't think it happened when he landed?
The story that he wrote in his diary was that he leaps out of the presidential box at Ford's Theater. His spur gets caught on the bunting or the flag, and he falls to the stage and breaks his left fibula.
Yeah.
And the reality is that several eyewitnesses see him run out of the theater. In fact, one of the patrons gets up when they realize what's happened and chase him out of the theater. Highly unlikely.
No limp.
That you are running.
Adrenaline.
There's a second part of it.
Okay.
And the second part of it is the young stagehand that is holding his horse He goes out of the back entrance and he hits that boy in the face with the butt of his knife. He uses his left leg in the stirrup to swing himself up on top of the horse. Now, the reality is that sometime between 20 14th and midnight, when he gets to Surratt's Tavern, he does have a broken leg. And the reality is, or the thought is, that he probably fell off of his horse as he was getting out of Dodge.
And he might not be aware of when it happened because he would have had so much adrenaline going through his body that he probably didn't even notice the pain until some way through the ride. But we do agree he had a broken left leg very early on in the story. We also all agree that David Herold joined him in Maryland on his way to Mary Surratt's Tavern.
Correct.
He was part of the plot to kill the Secretary of State that didn't go well.
That's right.
We all agree with that.
He leaves Powell high and dry.
Sure does.
He takes off.
And one thing we can all agree on is that 188 years since the birth of John Wilkes Booth, he's dead.
Yes.
He is no longer at large.
No
So
question.
we have established facts that we can all agree with.
That.
Okay.
That might be all I see, is that he killed Lincoln, broke his leg, into the Diaz.
Yeah. And we're probably going to start deviating from our stories quite early on here. So at Mary Surratt's Tavern, arrived a little after midnight. Booth and Herold both arrive. They are both positively ID'd by people there where they had left guns there.
Right.
People familiar with the tavern knew both of them. In fact, I think that Herold and Booth met through Surratt's son, right?
John Surratt,
who actually introduced them. So they were very
Dr.
close.
Mudd introduced
Surratt
Booth and Surratt.
Right.
So yes,
Okay, so they're all intertwined.
Yes.
But they didn't stay long. This is, according to the record I am going to put forward, this is the last time the two of them were positively ID'd together.
In the same place at the same time.
In the same place at the same time. Everything else, we're making assumptions based on one or the other.
Highly suspicious.
Highly suspicious. All right, so we're moving on to the home of Dr. Samuel Mudd. This is a 30-mile ride on a broken ankle. That is very painful, not easy. When he arrived there, Mudd knew Booth. He had stayed there before.
100%.
I mean, James has gone deep into the number of connections between Mudd and Booth.
So we are very certain that we are absolutely certain that Booth was there, that his leg was set and he was given crutches or made crutches. We agree with that.
No question.
Here's where we disagree. Samuel Mudd said that the guy he was riding with went by the name of Hinson. Hinson. He also described this Hinson as 17 or 18 and had never shaved. That does not line up with David Herold, who in the pictures has facial hair, not a massive amount, but looking at the pictures, he does not look like a 17 or 18-year-old. Certainly not a Civil War 17 or 18-year-old. I was going to say, also, he looked at a picture, he was shown a picture afterwards of Herold and said that was not the person who was with Booth. So according to Samuel Mudd, we can be certain that Booth was there. We cannot be certain that Herold was.
Can we insert here that Samuel Mudd initially told investigators and anyone who would listen that he did not recognize John Wilkes Booth, despite the fact that he knew exactly who he was? So we already have him on the record as lying repeatedly through this ordeal.
Giving up his story bit by bit.
So what lends credibility to this component of Samuel Mudd?
It's not about lending credibility to a story. It's about casting doubt on all testimony. Like you are assuming that the official story is credible the whole way through. I'm saying at no point, basically after Surratt's Tavern, do we have a consistent narrative.
He's got contrary evidence that says that he wasn't.
Everything. Right. So there's lots of things that can happen. All I'm saying is that at this point, we do not have him. Also, there are different motivations for those.
Herold it could be not the man who was with.
Correct. There is a good chance that during that ride, I said this before the show, if you've ever watched Scooby-Doo, you know that let's split up, right? Like it's harder to find if there's just one person there, or if this other person has joined them, then suddenly there's three of them. They're like, no, I'm going off on my own. This is too noisy, too loud.
This might be getting ahead of the story a little bit, but it's always been a problem for me that Booth was such a meticulous planner, and yet this plan goes completely awry. It would make more sense if part of the plan was for him to go off and...
Right.
That's a good point.
But also his plan involved him being treated like a hero.
Correct.
He did not expect to be a villain, which suddenly threw everything, you plan to come out and everyone to cheer you, and suddenly you're the most notorious man in American history. That was not part of his plan. Yeah. We also agree that Booth shaved his mustache at this point to change his look.
That's right.
And we agree that when Mudd found out, well, actually, we don't agree on this. Mudd says that he found out about the Lincoln assassination and then kicked him out. It's unlikely he would have heard of this beforehand because news can't travel faster than a horse.
He heard about it was that he came up after being in town and that
Correct.
Herold and Booth were on their horses and were leaving. So
Booth and his guest. Booth and whoever was with him. Let's be careful here and only stick to what we can confirm. We can confirm that Booth was there +1.
But in that version of events, Samuel Mudd did not know about Lincoln's assassination.
Correct.
He came back
Until he went to Bryantown.
Yeah.
Found out, came back and said, "You guys got to get the heck out of here."
Well, there are two different versions there.
Oh.
One of them is that he comes back from Bryantown and they're already up on their horses and leaving.
Okay.
And he's just, okay, well, that's good. They're leaving. The other version is that he knew that Lincoln had been assassinated. So there are.
Yeah. And obviously, motivations for Mudd's story involve the fact he does not want to be accomplice after the fact. So you have to take it with a pinch of salt. But there is no reason for him to say, there is no difference in his crime as to whether it's Herold or what was the name I had here? Henson. That makes no difference in terms of his liability. It's Booth or not Booth. So the next stop is the home of Samuel Cox. This, again, is where we are going to be contradicting. Cox contacted Thomas Jones, who specialized in ferrying spies across the Potomac.
The River Ghost.
The River Ghost.
And he advised them to wait for a few days in the woods. You guys have covered that.
The Pine Thicket.
Yes, and we assume, the history record assumes it's Booth and Herold because Herold was at Garrett's barn, and we're told that Booth was there. At no point is this confirmed. He did not positively ID both of them. Willie Jett, who was the person who actually did take them from this point, he said that the guy that was introduced to him was William James Boyd.
Now, a quick little conspiracy on the Pine Thicket that James pointed out in that episode is that they allegedly had to kill their horses because the horses were making noise. They required feed, and bringing feed into the woods would have been suspicious. The horses were never found.
Yeah.
So how do two horses in a pine thicket completely disappear?
That's a great question. So we know at this point, Willie Jett was introduced to Herold and William James Boyd. He took those to Garrett's farm. At the home of Samuel Mudd, we had Booth plus someone called Hinson.
Right.
These are two separate stories that are happening now. We're assuming they're the same.
But can I throw in that before he meets Willie Jett, we've got William Rollins, who they asked to take him over the ferry, and he is shown a couple of days later, or when Baker comes through, he is shown a picture of Booth, and he says, yes, that was Booth that was asking me to take him across the river. And just a counterpoint.
Yeah, it's a counterpoint, and who knows? It could be true.
Right.
All of this could be wrong, or all of it could be true. We don't know. We have got contradictory testimonies. All we can say is that Dr. Samuel Mudd and Samuel Cox, or I should say actually Willie Jett, bypass them, were introduced to totally different people. We're assuming it's the same group of two, but the names were given are not consistent. They probably looked quite similar. James William Boyd is a real soldier we know about. He's part of the original plot to kidnap Lincoln. So he is someone who is involved. All right. So now we get to Garrett's farm. This is interesting. Now, Garrett does not know who Booth was. Apparently, he's one of the few Americans who had never seen his picture, which is quite rare. He was introduced to him again, James W. Boyd. Now, of course, Booth has motivation to hide his name, especially now that news is catching up with him, that he is not the hero that he thought he would be. It's good for him to go by a false name.
But it also kills him not to be able to take credit for what he's done. You know?
Yeah, and he wants credit. Apparently Garrett's son testified years later that while they were eating in the house, that they mentioned the Lincoln thing, and he was like, "Oh, how would you guys act if like he came through? Would you turn him in?" But he was apparently very calm about it. He didn't seem like someone that was part of this. He just seemed like a Confederate soldier.
He's an actor.
Home. He is an actor. He, if it was him,
very, very good actor.
Yep.
And again, while James W. Boyd's changed his name, Herold has not changed his name at this point. You would think they would both be going by aliases.
Good call. Yeah.
But Herold's like, no.
And the new name comes out of the blue.
Yeah. And he's also picked a name of someone that he knows.
Right.
He's throwing his friend under the bus here. Also someone that's quite likely going to be captured.
Right.
You'd pick a fake name, possibly. So at Garrett's barn, we do not have Booth identified by the Garretts. They stayed in the barn. When the soldiers arrived, it was set alight, and Herold came. Oh, Herold came out before it was set alight.
Great call, right? Because at the barn, the soldiers never really have an interaction with Booth outside of dragging the body out of the barn.
All they say, the only thing that clues him in or that makes him happy is he says, "I am a cripple. I'm a crippled man."
Yeah,
and so that's how they can.
Right, he challenges
It challenges them to a duel, but he says, "I'm a." With that, they're elated. Oh, we got our guy. But they, it's dark. I mean,
it is dark. Yeah. So when Herold comes out surrendered, the first line he says, apparently, is, "The man in there is not Booth."
That's crazy. See, I didn't hear anything about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that in various testimonies. Now, he obviously goes back on that later because he's also trying to negotiate his
So this is an important point, which is that at that point, they are both going to be put to death. They are going to be executed. Mm-hmm. If Herold says that I am with the assassin of Abraham Lincoln,
much worse.
Over. So if he comes out and says, "That's not Booth in there.
No, we're just two guys trying to make it home.
I was just stealing horses."
Yeah, exactly.
His life is sealed once he is with John Wilkes Booth.
Right. And if you think about the motivations for Herold at this point, what crime has Herold committed? He was part of the attempted assassination of Secretary of State William Stewart.
Right.
But he was outside the building.
Right.
Yes.
No one probably saw him. He heard that something went wrong inside and took off. Right. As far as he knows, no one knows he's done anything wrong. His accomplice might be dead. If he's not with Booth, he's done nothing wrong.
That's interesting. Right.
So he does have motivation to say that is not Booth.
Right.
But also, it might not be Booth. There was motivation. They were told, bring this guy in alive, but a shot was sent in.
That's the most interesting thing to me.
He was fired.
He needs to be brought in alive.
Yeah, but he wasn't.
The bullet.
He was shot in the barn. Now, it's interesting. There is no mention of crutches at the time. They were not found. The guy being a cripple, we'll get back to
painting that was very credible.
You did see a painting, you mentioned that, where he had crutches and like a name tag that said that he was wearing his like Hamlet costume, like, I'm an actor.
It looked like it was directly taken from a portraiture.
Just in the barn at that moment.
It definitely supported the case. So a guy was shot. His final words, not his final words, but amongst his final words were, "Tell my mom I died for my country," which is the most convenient thing to say. If you are trying to paint a picture, we caught Booth.
Right. Here's what he said.
Yeah. It's perfect.
Said, "I die for my country."
It's like he's like, he was adamant to the end that he was in the right and we took him down and we're the good guys. It paints it's
and if they had quoted him as saying, I am John Wilkes Booth, and I am dying for my country.
Exactly.
That might have...
The reason that is it Corbett that fires the bullet that kills him?
Yeah.
Because he is raising the rifle to shoot the cavalry members outside, so he has to take action. He has to shoot him. That's the narrative.
Yeah. So I was going to get to this later, but I'll come to it now. Somewhat many decades later, someone who I'm going to talk about soon described how he actually escaped without a river crossing. Apparently, someone was given a password to cross a bridge. But one of the guards, Frederick Demond, supported the claim, said, yes, someone came up and said, if people give you this password, let them through. And someone did, and he let him through, no questions asked.
Confederate soldier, probably. Right?
Yeah. So there is a story as how he got out. So we now move the body.
But you had him this was crossing the Potomac right after the assassination, or
no? I think this would have been after he split, the potential split.
Okay.
Basically, we don't have anyone saying how he crossed the river, but there is a story.
John Wilkes Booth is off on his own.
Okay. Correct. So the body is now moved to the U.S. Montauk for identification. One picture was taken, and that picture has never been seen since.
That's well, yeah.
Which is very handy.
Very handy.
Someone who was very familiar with Booth was brought on board to identify the body. His name is Dr. John Frederick May. The reason he was brought on is because he had performed surgery on Booth 2 years earlier. Booth had had a cyst or a tumor or some sort of boil on the back of his neck, which was cut off by this doctor. So he was familiar with his face and all that stuff. He said that he did not recognize Booth. Now, there's two things here. One, it wasn't Booth. Or two, this is a guy who's been shot in the neck, been face down for a day.
Couple of days later, after
his face is swollen. It's very possible.
He's shaved.
He's shaved. He did go back and say, I do not recognize him, but it is him because he recognized the scar. He was identified by the scar on the back of his neck. He says, and we're going to get to this.
Sounds credible to me.
It's very possible. Mm-hmm. It's very possible. But the guy brought on to identify him. He did. Now, you get to say the guy said, I'm a cripple in there. He did also note that the guy on there had a discolored right leg.
Wrong leg.
Wrong leg. And also wrong injury. The broken ankle that Mudd diagnosed would not have been discolored. I mean, there have been days since then, so things could have gotten worse. He could have re-broken it. Who knows? He's also riding a horse with it, so things could have got worse, but it's the wrong leg.
It's the wrong leg. It's the left leg versus right.
What Mudd said is that there was no bruising at all. Mm-hmm. Like, it was actually quite a clean break. Painful, but it wasn't like tissue was damaged. So a few other people that were at Garrett's farm who could not positively identify Booth. One, Lieutenant William Allen. He was a witness. He said that the guy in there had red hair. He also testified years later the government knew it wasn't Booth. Quartermaster, I don't know what that means. It's some sort of military position. Right. Quartermaster Wilson Kenzie, he was also a witness. He also noticed that it was a person with different color hair to Booth. And he said that the guy in there did not seem to have a broken leg. That's inconsistent with something else.
This is 2:00 in the morning.
And dark.
Again, burning barn.
Again, we're just suggesting.
Just saying, for the record, the testimony states.
Yes,
there's conflicting evidence.
Does all the testimonies that said it was Booth.
Correct.
So, all right, then we move on to the USS Montauk. Okay, there was only one picture taken of the autopsy, which was not totally uncommon. Photography, it's not like they had digital cameras that could take 1,000.
Right.
There was only one picture taken.
1865, one picture.
That picture has never been seen since.
Unbelievable.
That picture has been lost to history, which is either suspicious or...
It's probably the most important picture in that time period.
Right.
No more important picture than of the deceased John Wilkes Booth to put the public's mind at rest, if nothing else.
Correct. So we already have two people that have said this is a guy with red hair. We have Herold saying that guy is not Booth. Now we have a dead body been taken aboard the USS Montauk to be identified. And the picture... we do not have.
Right. Lost to history.
Lost to history. So the guy brought on the ship was Dr. John Frederick May to identify the body. The reason he was chosen is because 2 years prior in 1863, he had removed a tumor or a boil or something from the back of Booth's neck. He said, I do not recognize this man as Booth, but I recognize the scar on the back of the neck.
Interesting. So why would he have not been able to recognize?
So there's two things here. One,
it's either a bloated body after a couple of days.
It's either not Booth, or two, it's a guy who's been face down as he's bleeding out and his face is swollen.
Got shot in the back of the neck, severed his spine, allegedly.
So
he's not looking his best.
He does identify the scar, cannot identify the face. Without a picture, we don't know what the face looked like.
And he got shot in the back of the neck. The scar.
Yeah.
Come on.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's...
you mean it not even... might not... That's a great point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He also noticed that there's discoloration on the right leg, which is not only inconsistent with a break, but also inconsistent with the leg.
Yeah, it's the wrong leg. It's the wrong leg.
Dr. Mudd set a left leg.
Yeah. So in 1900s, the general counsel to the Department of the Army, John Shoemaker, he said that based on all the evidence he saw and all the testimonies from those few days, that there is not enough evidence for substantially to bring to a court of law.
Wow.
That's John Shoemaker, General Counsel to the Department of Army. Evidence so insubstantial that it would not stand up in a court of law.
That is pretty crazy.
That's insane.
Also, a few years later, when this was disputed around the same time, the Smithsonian wanted to exhume the body taken from Garrett's farm.
He's in an unmarked grave in the Pennant.
Baltimore.
And the Booth family agreed, but state court said no. So we do not know. So
I
basically,
I thought they moved his body to a family,
They did, but that's in Baltimore.
but they would have to have some DNA testing. You'd be able to find out at this point in 2026.
Well, they wouldn't allow it to
but
be.
it wasn't allowed. And now they don't know where it is.
They don't know where his body is.
I don't believe so. I don't
I
think they know
thought it
exactly.
was in an unmarked grave in a family cemetery.
Oh, I think they know what
This is
cemetery
your
it is.
story.
Yeah, it's in Baltimore.
Oh, they know exactly where it is?
That's my understanding.
My understanding. Well, I will say this. Based on contradictory testimony, the fact that after Surratt's Tavern, we have two separate identifications. We have positive identifications for Herold and positive identifications for Booth,
Right.
but not together.
Right.
It's
Interesting.
interesting. We also know that a guard on one of the bridges did corroborate a story that they let someone across with a password, which is someone that came back later and said that. So it is possible. You also have to remember the motivations for authorities at this point. If you're in charge of this and you've killed a guy and everyone says it's Booth, job well done, everyone's happy, you get to move on.
So
If it's
embarrassing.
not Booth and you say, sorry, our bad, we've just killed some kid,
Right.
it does not look good. Nobody wins in that situation.
Right.
So,
And
unfortunately,
as we found with the assassination of Lincoln, Booth thought he was going to be a hero.
correct.
He ends up being a villain. Even Confederate generals write letters to the Union saying, we denounce this, we do not abide by this. So,
Yeah, it did not go
It
anywhere
was
near.
planned.
Yeah, it did not go to plan. So, what happened next?
Where does that leave us?
Where does that leave us? Well, we're left with a guy on the loose who needs to change his name. Now, we have a few different stories here, and I'm going to leave the one that I believe till last.
this is the one that you believe in Atlanta?
It does.
Oh, nice.
It does.
Spoiler
We
alert.
can visit it. We can visit. I have visited.
Atlanta history
Yeah.
for cocktail parties.
Yeah. So, are you familiar with Martha Isola Mills?
I don't believe I know that name.
I'm not.
This is a woman who claims to have married Booth in 1859.
Okay.
Now, there is no marriage certificate that's been found, but there are a couple of documents. One, there is a document signed by the person who ordained the ceremony saying,
Sure.
I did do this. And it was that year. It wasn't later done. In
Right.
1859, the marriage of John Wilkes Booth and Martha Isola Mills, sometimes Isola Martha Mills, it's hard to say. The minister has signed documents to that, apparently. What's interesting, John Wilkes Booth was the Brad Pitt, George Clooney of his day. He was considered the most handsome man in America.
Right.
Like, his picture was everywhere. He was the most famous guy, which is crazy to think that Brad Pitt would assassinate the president. Like, it's that big.
Right.
And I'm sure that at that time he had lots of
Female companions.
Exactly. And actually, we're going to get to that. We're moving to India soon, so we're gonna cover that. So, a guy by the name of John Byron Wilkes went to India apparently with Martha Isola Mills, although it's unclear if she was with him or if she stayed. But there is paperwork of both of them where he wrote his will. And this will that he wrote there, this guy, John Byron Wilkes, leaves his money to lots of people who were associated with Booth. This woman, lots of the people he was engaged to. And this guy named Harry Jerome Stevenson. Now, this is interesting. So, Martha Isola Mills marries a guy called John Stevenson in 1871 and has a son called Harry Jerome Stevenson. The contention or the family lore that they were told that this guy, John Stevenson, on his deathbed, told his son, Harry Jerome Stevenson, that his father is in fact John Wilkes Booth. This marriage was basically a cover story to legitimize this birth because John Wilkes Booth couldn't father a child because he didn't exist. And so they needed a father. So, and this guy, Harry Jerome Stevenson, does look like Booth. So we basically have a family who are told, hey, John Wilkes Booth is the father here. Descendants up until today still believe this, that Harry Jerome Stevenson, who looked like Booth, who this guy in India, John Byron Wilkes, left money to, as well as other people associated with Booth from before. On Martha's marriage certificate to Stevenson, her name is listed as Martha Isola Booth.
Come on.
What?
But you can write anything.
Yeah,
right? You can say anything.
right.
She's claiming she was married before to Booth and that he was dead.
Right.
But yeah, John Stevenson was a friend of Booth before all this happened.
Huh.
So it's a lot of circumstantial. There's nothing here of particular
We need to go
evidence.
find John Stevenson's body.
That's right.
Sounds like Booth might have
Yeah.
offed him and thrown him in a river. And
So that's interesting. So that is the Isola Mills family.
okay, that's number one.
That's number one.
Number
Two,
two.
and this could be the same person actually, because there's a gap here. And you may, I've heard this name before I started researching. Have you heard of John St. Helen or David E. George?
Neither.
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, so these are one and the same person. This guy lived by the name David E. George for the most part. 1877, so not that long after his assassination, 12 years after, the guy was dying in Texas, and a lawyer friend of his called Finis Bates, basically on his deathbed, he confessed to being Booth. He was the one that said he got the password
Oh, no
across the
kidding.
bridge, which has been supported by guard Frederick Demand.
Right.
Bates wrote a book about this and sort of laid out all of his claims.
Wow.
He then, what was interesting is this guy then recovered fully and vanished.
Huh.
So he was like, oh, I've just,
Yeah.
because newspapers picked up on the fact someone's confessed to being Booth.
Right, right.
So he got well
Yeah.
and took off.
Right.
Later, another guy, John St. Helen, confessed on his deathbed and then died.
Uh-huh.
Finis Bates showed up, identified the way he goes, oh, that's the same guy that confessed to me. So Bates had this body preserved,
Okay.
and it became a carnival attraction.
Oh my God.
I don't know if it's you have your computer right there. You can see this guy toured around the country with this is the Booth. This is John Wilkes Booth's body, and it
Right.
showed up at the circus, and people took
Yeah.
pictures with it, and it was a whole
Put that in
thing.
the show notes.
Right on.
Yeah. In 1931, this body was turned over to 6 Chicago physicians who noticed 3 things. This is way pre-DNA.
Yeah.
But 3 things. 1, a scar on his right eyebrow, consistent with Booth.
Okay.
Crushed right thumb, consistent with Booth. And the broken left leg,
Yeah.
consistent with Booth.
Wow.
But if you were to look at this thing, it's a mummy. It looks like an Egyptian mummy.
right.
There's not a great deal you can go with. But people believed it at the time.
Yeah, well, in the era of P.T. Barnum, there were all
Yeah.
kinds of things that were held up as.
So all we have here to support this is a guy that confessed twice and had a broken left leg. But he also did give accounts of the story. He also said that a lot more people were involved. This was a guy who implicated President Johnson has been involved. And whatnot.
Okay.
So there's,
Right.
you know, and probably
Yeah.
more people that you know,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
want to chip in with
Sure.
some of the people that you think.
Well, I mean, Lafayette Baker apparently, I mean, this one researcher claimed that he found a code and something that Lafayette Baker had written where there were multiple people that were implicated, governors, bankers.
And Lafayette Baker is the CD investigator who's brought in to sort of head up the manhunt for John Wilkes.
Who magically finds him when nobody else can.
And like just points out randomly on a map where he thinks he is, and that's where he is.
Basically.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Lincoln is very much loved now, but there was a lot of people that wanted him dead at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference between a war president and a post-war president is very different. There's a lot of people that are like, he's good now. Winston Churchill lost re-election immediately after World War II. People were like, yeah, he's great for taking on the Nazis, but we don't want him as prime minister. We don't want him as prime minister.
It's a good wartime.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to bring you on now to my favorite story. And this is the only story where someone was thought of being Booth during their lifetime, not just a deathbed confession, but this guy lived under the shadow of everybody in his circle thinking he was Booth.
This is incredible.
And this is Dr. James Glasgow Armstrong. Now, I came across this guy studying Atlanta history for Anecdotal Atlanta, follow on Instagram and TikTok, because he lived here in Atlanta. He moved here in the 1880s. He was a priest? Preacher, what would the word be for Catholic
Priest,
Church?
I think,
Priest. At the Cathedral of St. Philip Episcopal, which is still here in Buckhead, arrived in the 1880s. And immediately, or in fact, even prior to this, newspapers across the country just flat out said, this guy looks like Booth.
Right.
All the time. It was...
he was also a Shakespearean scholar.
Oh, yeah.
So there were a couple of threads
we'll
there
get that.
and we know that John Wilkes Booth was a preeminent Shakespearean actor.
As were his parents. He had Shakespeare from birth. So this preacher comes in, apparently incredibly good
And
looking.
this would have been the downtown location.
It
St.
would have
Philip's.
been downtown.
This is not the one in Buckhead.
So this guy, he shows up in town, very handsome guy, very charismatic. Apparently he was a very theatrical preacher. He was known for giving these very eloquent, beautiful sermons. Became very popular. And everyone just said he was Booth. People just accepted that's John Wilkes Booth. People were happy with the story. People didn't seem that concerned about it here. It was
we're in the deep south.
we're in the
down
deep
here,
south
brother.
this time. You mentioned this a second ago. You alleged this, but more than the fact that he was just Shakespearean, this guy went on lecture tours to talk about Shakespeare.
Wow.
This was a theologian. He wasn't going out there talking about God, the Bible, Jesus. He went out there and talked about Shakespeare. The theater. That was his passion. That was his love. But nowhere in his education was that. This was a guy who was a priest.
And didn't somebody visit him that?
Oh, yes. This to me is I cannot. This is where, I'm going to give you two things.
Okay.
One, a friend of Booth from DC was visiting in Atlanta and saw him in a restaurant and said, yeah, that's Booth. I know him.
Wow.
That's Booth.
Right.
And again, I'm getting this from a newspaper at the time. Newspapers at the time weren't great. A lot of times they would sensationalize things. But the accounts of these stories...
Unlike today.
But it is remarkable. My own personal journey with this, I read like a story about this and it had citations and I got the original newspapers from, 1880. Chicago Post, multiple, like the Chicago Tribune just straight up saying, identified as John Wilkes Booth in this restaurant in Atlanta. And it blows your mind. These were everywhere. When he died, his obituary was in like 20 newspapers and every single one said he was John Wilkes Booth or he struck a remarkable resemblance to John Wilkes Booth. And here's the part I cannot dispute I can dispute if it didn't happen, but if this happened, I can't get my head around this. Edwin Booth, John Wilkes Booth's brother. His actual brother, who I'm sure you mentioned saved the life
of Robert
Lincoln, which is mind-blowing.
It would be like George Clooney saving your life, pulling you up off of the train tracks and you look up. And
but it was really cool.
Edwin Booth was also perhaps more famous.
Than his brother.
Not after the assassination, he wasn't.
Well, I understand,
but at the time, I mean, these were megastar brothers.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Described as the Barrymores of their time.
So, he was in a play in Atlanta. He was here for several days on tour, and Dr. James Garfield had a private audience in his hotel. Sorry, Dr. James Armstrong. Thank you. Had a private audience with him in his hotel 3 straight days. Why?
Yeah.
He doesn't know this guy.
Yeah.
He's never met this guy. And he's like, he's just hanging out there all the time. This was reported on in the newspapers that this Booth lookalike is hanging out with Edwin Booth in multiple days in his hotel room, the two of them alone. That's to me.
That's hard to wrap your head around.
Hold on, gentlemen.
All right.
Hold on. Edwin Booth, the Booths are preeminent Shakespearean actor. I mean, they are the father's name, but Brutus.
Hanging out.
No, I can see the motivation for Armstrong.
You are the preeminent Shakespearean actor, and you have a Shakespearean expert who lectures around the country on Shakespeare
for 3 days. This preacher in Atlanta.
Just positive,
of course.
Just simply.
You sounded like you sounded like you're pretty convinced.
I know nothing. I'm not there. I was not in the hotel room.
Sure. I mean, it's very possible, but also if he was that famous, do you think he'd want his fans to be hanging out that much? Maybe he would. It was a different time. I don't know. But that to me was like...
That is very suspicious.
And so this guy is buried at Westview Cemetery in Atlanta. I visited. I found his grave and it's like looking at it. I'm like, wow, could that really be?
That's amazing.
The most notorious...
Yeah.
We're taking a field trip down to see John Wilkes Booth or James Armstrong, quote, in quote.
So in conclusion, authorities had motivation to act. I don't know, the old term is that justice not only has to be done, but seen to be done. But more importantly, seen to be done. The public wants... The authorities are politicians. There is public trust. If the guy is at large, people are going to start losing their jobs and whatnot. They have a guy dead. I'm sure they shot the guy in good faith if such a thing exists. Right. But
why do you think they had a Warren Commission?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's, there are motivations to tie this thing up. Very, very rarely do dead people face trial. Typically, when the suspect is dead, it's case closed. We're moving on.
Yeah.
So that to me is...
There was indeed an investigation into Abraham Lincoln's assassination.
Yes. congressional investigation.
And you have
I do.
the
I do.
diary,
You want to take a quick break, though, and talk about one of our other partners?
Sounds like a great idea. Sterling Steecrest Pritchard. It's one of the Southeast's largest privately held insurance brokers and quite possibly the only agency brave enough to tackle everything from construction mishaps to healthcare misadventures, logistics disasters, real estate whoopsies, and even ransom notes from hackers who apparently have never heard of two-factor authentication. When it comes to your home, your business, and all the weirdness life can throw your way, SSP has you covered, usually before you even realize you need it. For a friendly guide through, wait, that can actually happen? To "Do I need a lawyer?" Call 678-424-6503 or visit sspins.com. That's sspins.com. And now, thank you so much, SSP, for your support. We appreciate your partnership. And James, get us back into the investigation into.
Right. Well, this ties into what Will was talking about. There was actually a congressional investigation involved after Booth's death, in part because there were some missing pages from Booth's diary, and
my understanding was that Booth kept his diary after while he was on the run. It wasn't a day by day thing. He was sort of correcting the record.
Right. Whether that's true or not, we don't know.
Paper articles, and he wanted to reclaim the narrative.
Right.
Allegedly.
Right. Perhaps. But
according to what Will said, all that goes out the window.
You have to look at the motivations, right, for this. No one benefits from Booth being alive at this point.
Right. So here's the kind of
even Booth doesn't benefit from Booth being alive.
Right.
Booth's very happy to see, like, oh, I'm dead. Awesome. Just change my name and we're good to go.
Exactly. Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
So there's kind of another conspiracy theory that maybe Secretary of War Department Edwin Stanton was in on the whole deal, among others.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why does he offer $100,000?
Yeah, well, that's and why does he want the guy brought back alive, according to one account? Right. So that's the big kind of contradiction there. But Booth's plan was to decapitate the government, reignite the Civil War, and he wasn't just targeting Lincoln. He was targeting Lincoln, Vice President Johnson, Secretary of State Seward. Why did he leave out Edwin Stanton? I mean, Edwin Stanton, he had trampled on the Constitution. He had, helped Lincoln suspend the writ of habeas corpus. One of the most hated men. He was driving with Lincoln, driving the war effort. One of the most hated men and most powerful men in Washington. So it's kind of odd. And
I know you're going to get into, but what's the succession plan in 1865?
Right. So
does he have a path to the presidency?
Right. So the succession plan that we all know about today, basically came in to place long after 1865. There was the 20th constitutional amendment, the 20th amendment in 1933, 25th in 1969, and there was a 1947 statute that was passed that basically says, what you'd think: president, vice president, speaker of the House, president pro tempore of the Senate, then secretary of state. It goes on, but they didn't have that in place back then. So theoretically, Stanton, constitutional scholar, he's a lawyer, could have made the argument that you take out those three, and hey, I'm next in line.
A team of rivals tells us that he was a candidate for the president of the United States, or wanted to be.
Well, yeah, he opposed Lincoln's presidency originally opposed Lincoln's presidency in 1860. So let me jump back. We covered Detective Lafayette Baker a little bit earlier.
The Frenchman.
Yeah.
Very suspicious.
Yeah. He was described as shifty, and his motivations were not always defined, but just to kind of revisit him for a second, certainly distinguished himself in the Civil War, a Union spy, promoted to the War Department. He actually was tapped to set up this organization called the National Detective Police, kind of precursor to the Secret Service. in good graces, but then started doing some kind of crazy stuff. He was wiretapping Edwin Stanton's office. Stanton got sick of him and fired him.
How the hell do you do a wiretap in 1865?
Maybe you just got
a
people.
little dude sitting underneath the desk.
That's a great. Yeah, I don't know how he did it, but he was just doing some kind of shady stuff, and then he goes to New York, and somehow time after that, they don't know exactly where he is. Some people say that Stanton fired the guy kind of as a cover, but then kept up with him. He knew exactly where to find him in April 16th, 1865 to bring him back, start at least a separate manhunt, to try and find John Wilkes Booth. And there's a connection between Lafayette Baker and John Wilkes Booth. It's possible that they knew each other. They were both in Canada at the same time. They both had an association with this company called the J.J. Chaffee Company. Baker apparently received a sum of money from that firm for an unknown reason. And that same firm, J.J. Chaffee Company, also paid John Wilkes Booth nearly $15,000 between August 24th and October 5th of 1864. It was, both payments actually had this address, the same address on them in Montreal, 178 and a half Water Street in Montreal. And so they were both paid by this company. They were both connected to the same address. And so that's kind of weird, right? Oh, and there was also a telegram that went out from the same address, this 178 and a half Water Street, to a company in Chicago that said, quote, John Wilkes Booth will ship oysters until Sunday the 15th. Nobody still, knows what that means. But anyway.
Was it April 15th?
Didn't say. Sunday the 15th. But interesting date there. And so he's this disgraced detective. Stanton makes him, head of, or gives him free reign to search this guy out, and when he's already got 1,000
Thornton investigation in the country at that time, and they pick some scallywag up who has been dismissed.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is that he knows exactly where to find him. Pulls him right back from New York. And also, we talked about in our prior episode that Lafayette Baker, when nobody else can find Booth, his guys find him within a day. They get this telegraph that says that these other guys, it was incorrect information.
Across the river.
And he, later said, I looked at the maps, and this just seemed like a logical place where we would go, look for him.
I think it was like 8 miles away from where he was or something.
Yeah.
Really
It was pretty close.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So the conspiracy theory was that Edwin Stanton was in on the deal when the plot did not go as planned, and Edwin Stanton was not going to be able to claim the presidency. He contacted Lafayette Baker, who was also in on the deal, and the conspiracy theory goes that Lafayette Baker knew exactly where Booth would be, knew his escape route, and that's how he was able to find him. Edwin Stanton, in this conspiracy theory, would want Lafayette Baker to kill Booth, to silence him, so he could not reveal the whole plot. So, in a nutshell, that's that conspiracy theory. And there's a little bit more to this, which is kind of interesting. When the Booth was shot and they were taking the body back to D.C., somebody grabbed Booth's diary that was on him and gave it to Lafayette Baker. Baker apparently gave Booth's diary to Edwin Stanton. Again, Secretary of War Department. Stanton puts it in his safe for 2 years and doesn't tell anybody about it. All this time, all these people are being convicted and hung, and put to death. The diary would have been, much sought after evidence. Would have been the biggest news of the time. And so going back to what you were talking about, there was actually a congressional investigation. Apparently Lafayette Baker wrote a best-selling memoir in 1867 and mentioned this diary. And that's what kind of gave it away. And so there was this huge public outcry.
So no one knew about it until he wrote his memoir?
That's my understanding. And so Congress, there's a congressional investigation. Stanton is forced to admit that he has the diary, to produce it. He does so reluctantly, and when he does, there are 18 pages missing.
What?
Yeah, from the diary. And they had been ripped out, not just redacted, but like totally ripped out. And he said, look, this was how it was when I got it. In 1960, this has been debunked, but I'll go ahead and mention
1960.
Well, I'm jumping forward to 1960. This historian claimed to have found a code in an 1868 article that Baker had written, where it claimed that this Stanton and 11 other congressmen, one governor, and 5 well-known bankers were all in on the deal. Again, this has been dismissed, this code that he found in this 1868 article. But another kind of interesting thing about Lafayette Baker, 18 months after this whole diary thing came about and the congressional investigation, Baker dies of meningitis. But there's actually evidence that points to a slow and systematic poisoning with arsenic. Apparently, his brother-in-law's visits to come see Lafayette Baker correspond with a timeline that would work for being poisoned. And this guy, Wally Pollock, was the brother-in-law that purportedly did it, was actually an employee of Stanton in the War Department.
I heard it was an Episcopal priest named James Armstrong.
Yeah.
Offering last rites.
Anyway, there's a lot of stuff out there. But
I think we can agree that basically we agree there is an official story, but there's lots not there.
Yeah.
And there's lots of places where you're like, would that have happened? And you have to understand that the motivations for those that are writing the official record is not to make it as perfect as possible, but to make sure that the country's kept together, right? That there's a noble side to it. They don't want the war to kick off again or anything like that. It's like, all right, if he's out there, then he's a hero to some people and they can rally behind him. There's also personal stuff. It's like, all right, well, now I'm the president, or, now I can have another
Now
position.
we can move on.
Or I asked, in charge of this investigation, did my job correctly.
Right.
So there's a lot of motivations there, and nobody benefits from Booth not being dead.
Being dead and shot in the barn.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, Will, we sure do appreciate your being here
This was awesome.
with us.
Fun.
It was a lot of fun. Let's maybe do it again sometime.
Let's.
And we conclude our hunt for John Wilkes Booth and the conspiracies. I'm interested to hear from our listeners. What do y'all think?
Yeah.
What's a story that you heard? What's something that did any of these resonate? Did any of y'all hear the rumor about the Cathedral of St. Philip? So leave a comment on the podcast, and we really appreciate y'all listening.
Thanks for listening.